up next, Draw Star Wars with Jake.
What's up, world? It's your girl, Noel, and I am so excited to be a part of BritCon as your interviewer today. We have an amazing guest for you to check out. He is a world-renowned illustrator, animator. He is great, hilarious guy. Meet my new friend, Jake. All right. Hey, Jake.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. How are you doing? You all right?
I'm doing very good. Very, very well. Let's just dive right in. I want to know a little bit about your background, like growing up. So tell me, where did you grow up?
So I'm from Hull, which is a city in the north of England.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, as they say in Star Wars, I was born a long time ago. It's not a galaxy far, far away, but yeah. So yeah, I was born in Hull in the early 70s, and I was just I grew up in a house where my mum and dad encouraged creativity. It wasn't a thing that was, frowned upon. So I was a little kid who enjoyed making things, and then that sort of turned into a job at some point.
Oh,
have you ever been to Hull?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever been to Hull?
No, my sister,
Yeah.
my oldest sister lived in England though. So
Okay.
she says I'm
Where's
way
she?
overdue for a trip.
Where's she? Do you know?
I don't remember. She was in the U.S. military, and so she was on the base there, and she loved it. My nephew was born there too, but now they're in good old Texas, completely different.
Yeah, it's a bit of a change,
right? Okay, so you're telling me that you had very supportive parents growing up. They encourage your creativity. So is that how you got into drawing, or did you explore different mediums and then fell into drawing?
It was, I don't remember not drawing and making things. Like one of my earliest memories before I could draw, we were cutting out Disney pictures and putting them in a paste, before you could draw, paste them in a book with my mum.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of it is you're encouraged. My brain seems to work in a very graphic way. I sort of see things quite graphically, and I always did. Like I always say this, I could read the Planet of the Apes logo. One of my earliest memories, I could read the Planet of the Apes logo, which I now know is designed by Ed Bengia, but I didn't at that point. I knew those shapes before I could read meant Roddy McDowell in a monkey mask, because there was a TV show of it and there was a cartoon of it when I was little. So I knew the sort of the long T's on it meant Planet of the Apes. So I just think I had this kind of graphic thing where my eyes translate messages to my brain is quite graphic. I can't drive, barely can. There's loads of grown-up things I can't do.
Hold on,
I think, you know what I mean? It was shapes, and when I was a kid in a pram, I used to like all the car logos. I could say Ford, VW. I'm not interested in cars, but I like the logos. So I was the kid who could draw when I was little, and then you sort of people at school. If the kid who's good at football, you call it soccer, but there's a kid who's good at sports at school. There's a kid who's good at drawing at every school. I just became that kid who's the drawing kid.
Gosh, I bet everybody flocked and said, "What are you drawing next? What are you drawing next?"
it was. I think it was more a thing of I could draw people's faces, which is still a big part of what I do. So I could draw the teacher. If when I was a kid, if I drew somebody's dad, I drew the teachers, even though it was a kid's drawing, they could sort of tell who it was. So I mean, it's a bit like doing an impression or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like people like it. It's entertaining. So it was, I was the kid who could draw the teachers and all that thing.
That's fun. So already graduated from stick figures and drawing people. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You skipped a few levels. That's amazing. So
it was something I enjoyed drawing. Yeah. I enjoyed English. I enjoyed writing. So I write sometimes. I only really bothered with the things that I thought I was any good at from being tiny. I just couldn't be bothered with the other stuff. It's a bit lazy.
It's like you just have that passion and you just stuck with it, and that's beautiful. That's marvelous.
I think also culturally in the UK, when I was a kid, comics was a big thing. Most kids read comics, and comics was a very working class, or as you would say, blue collar medium.
Yeah.
It's different now. It's an exclusive thing. It's in comic shops or it's in bookshops. But comics were a thing that most kids, when I was a kid, sort of, there were girls' comics, there were horror comics that you could still get, like Donald Duck and lots of little, kids' comics. So we all sort of grew up with comic. You read comics, and I guess seeing all those drawings all the time, I kind of wanted to do. I was very conscious really early on that these people did it for a job, and often they had like British cartoonists in newspapers had names like Giles and Trog and Jack and Mad Magazine. I was obsessed with Mad Magazine from America when I was a kid. So I was very conscious that these people did this for a job, and I remember being tiny and thinking, that sounds all right.
And you're like,
that sounded way better than working in the factory.
That is so cool.
There was a little bit of thinking, I want to practice until I'm good enough to be able to do that. So I was kind of quite laser guided as a kid, which is quite odd, I think. I was just like, I'm going to be a cartoonist when I grow up.
Wow.
And I didn't really think about what else I could have been. So I could have been an astronaut. No, I just didn't.
You could, right? Maybe brain surgeon.
Be a rubbish brain surgeon.
He said, "No, don't put me in that."
yeah, that's not good. Yeah,
that's amazing though. So, do you have a favorite medium you like to use when you're drawing, or do you have a set process? Do you start with pencil, or do you just go right?
The received sort of wisdom, like the thing of growing up and written. You used to be, I had how to draw comics the Marvel way and all these how to draw comic book things when I was a kid. And the received wisdom in comics was that you pencil it out and then you ink on top. And I tried that for years, and it just never looked. I kind of learned how to do it, but it looked quite stiff. So actually, in my 20s, I worked out on a piece of rubbish paper with a fairly rubbish pen. There's no pressure. Does this make sense? It's like, you give me a really nice piece of Bristol board and something, it's going to come out a bit dead. And actually, the best drawings were the ones where you weren't caring, that were on the back of an envelope. So it's almost like I've tried keeping that. I'm not too precious about, special paper or whatever, because it doesn't give me the fear anymore. You know what I mean? If I'm just drawing on some bit of scrap paper, that feels, a lot more comfortable. So I guess a pencil is still, I think, the best tool ever invented by humanity as a mark maker. You can do amazing things with a pencil, and computers are, using Photoshop and Illustrator, but what somebody can get out of a pencil still astounds me.
That's amazing.
Artists that are way better than me, what they can do with a pencil, but what anybody can do with a pencil if they, experiment with it, is still a kind of neat thing.
That's wild, and especially you can erase too. So if you make a mistake, it's like,
yeah.
No, that's wild. That's so cool. I know you touched upon it just a little bit, but what would you say influences your artistic style?
I always say it's because people ask me, people ask you what you do for a job. It's just one of these things. Like, everybody gets it, don't they? You're at a party or something, or you're in a shop and someone go, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And then I always say it's like if you imagine some kid in the 70s that was kind of stewed in a pot of comics, British comics, which are quite punky, 2000 AD, Thunderbirds, Jerry Anderson's Thunderbirds, Star Wars, and I'm the age that hip hop kind of took off in America. So I'm still at school when hip hop gets invented, and the beginning of hip hop just electrified me. And Subway Art was this book that came over here that had all the graffiti writers in it. So New York, there were teenagers writing letters on New York trains. That just blew me away. So I always say it's a mixture of comics, European comics, people like Mobius. I can't draw like Mobius, but seeing all this kind of European stuff, the American comics, and then graffiti from America. So I always say, imagine a kid who was into comics and graffiti and didn't really grow out of it. It feels like that's the DNA. That's what I can see in it. What other people see in it? People say manga and stuff. I used to get there was a point where people would go, "Yeah, your stuff looks really manga," but I don't think manga influence was as big as the other stuff. If you draw big eyes and certain haircuts, people think it.
That is automatically the manga.
There's a Japanese influence in there, but that's maybe the other component.
Yeah, definitely.
That kind of looks Japanese.
And let's talk about it because I'm a big hip hop head. So when I saw this artwork, bless you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
What inspired you? How did you come to this process to create this artwork?
I mean, this goes back to the spray can stuff. So for those of you who don't know who this character is, it's my version of a rapper who passed sadly at the end of last year. He was kind of same age as me, and he's called MF Doom. And he was in the late 80s. He was in a crew called KMD when he was a teenager. It was amazing. And then he sort of fell out of the industry, and it all went wrong. And he came back as this masked villain, MF Doom, which was inspired by Doctor Doom from Fantastic Four. He makes his own beats and he rhymes. So this was a tribute to him. I was really moved when he went, because I was just like, if you're gonna be into hip hop and comics, it's like we should have been mates. I thought, but I never met him.
Yeah.
And he was born in England, so apparently lived in Elephant Castle in London for a long while. So if I ever saw this guy that looked like he was wearing Clark's Wallaby and could have been Doom, I didn't really know what he looked like.
Right.
So this was I did a mixtape. I DJ sometimes. I did a mixtape. So the thing that says Mask of Doom is a sort of half-hour mix that cuts up Fantastic Four records and some funk and hip hop and things that he sampled. It's supposed to be the story of his life, like an audio version of the story of his life. So if you like hip hop and comics, you can find it on my SoundCloud. And then the thing next to it is I made a tune. I made some hip hop during lockdown, and I decided one of them was like had a kind of Doom vibe.
Yeah.
And then I went in the bathroom and started doing all these like fake American voices, and sort of glued those onto the track. And it's meant to sound like it's sampled from some old TV cartoon, like that was the last time we sure do. And they ended up on this record, and it's a tribute to him. So that's actually coming out as a record now, as a vinyl record, which I am like.
Oh
so
my
this
God.
is what we call a test pressing.
Oh my gosh.
So that's just a blank label version, and the B-side is another sort of kind of downbeat hip hop thing. It's done very morning.
Wow.
So like one side's quite dark, one side's quite light. So that's been sent off to the pressing plant. So that should come back with the proper sleeve on it any day.
My God.
So I'm mega excited that I've got a record out.
I'm excited for you. I'm excited for it to drop. You got to keep us posted on that one.
Have you got a record player?
I just bought one. I bought it through Amazon, so it's coming in. It's coming in by tomorrow. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I put the Doom thing out on Bandcamp, which is like an independent music platform that is. I don't really use Spotify. I don't want to get political. I don't use Spotify. It doesn't pay its artists properly. Whereas Bandcamp have a real ethos about, like, during the pandemic, most Fridays they were waiving all the fees. If you buy direct from an artist from Bandcamp, they get all the money. So I didn't think loads of people were going to. I'm not known as a musician. It's not like thousands of people are going to buy my tune. But I put this thing on Bandcamp, and then a record label that I've worked for, Dinked Records, went, "Oh, that's dope. Do you want to put it out as vinyl?" And I was like, try not to sound too excited, but like,
right, be like, yeah, cool,
yeah. So I've all my life this connection to hip hop and graffiti, but I'm from Hull, and it's just this weird thing, there's hip hop in America, and there's, you're always like there's hip hop, but you're so removed from it. And now I'm like, yeah, I'm hip hop. I got a record coming out.
Come on now, yes.
Start wearing chains and stuff.
You got the credentials now, like.
yeah. So I did a few remixes. And there's some more stuff coming out, but it's remixes of other people's stuff. But this is my thing, so I'm well excited about it. Kind of crazy.
Okay. I'm trying not to freak out, but I am so excited for that.
So excited. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So I'm going to put a pause on that, and I want to segue a little bit into your Star Wars journey. Okay. So,
all right,
question.
We're going to go there.
We're going to go there. So how did you get involved with Star Wars? Let's talk a little bit about that.
I mean, again, generationally, if you're my age, and you were a little boy, at that period of time, Star Wars came along, and you know, and it's the same with Jon Favreau and J.J. Abrams and all these people that work on the films. Now, you saw it at a certain age; it informed your ideas about creativity. You know, you didn't know that was happening at the time, but it's such a creative film, the first one. And again, really, my dad took me to see it, and I was obsessed with Star Wars all through my childhood. I just drew Star Wars all the time.
Wow.
And played the record, and moved my figures around to the record, and you know, acted it out. And you know, people go, "How did you work for Star Wars?" It's like, I think I wished too hard. I was just obsessed with it, but that don't make any sense, right? It don't make any sense that like lots of kids did that. You know, I would say I know the original trilogy really well, so that helps. I'd worked for the Prodigy, which was my first. I would say my first. Wasn't my first successful piece of work, but it was really early on in my career, in the first sort of year. But it was the first thing that kind of went worldwide. And when, in the old days, when you'd try and ring up to get work, I'd ring companies up, can I come and do some work for you? Or you'll like see my portfolio, and people would be like, who are you? And I'd just say, well, you know, because you're a new kid. It's like, and they would sort of say, have you done anything we've seen? And it was a really nice calling card, because you could just say, have you got the fat of the land? I'm like, yeah, open it up, that's me. You know, so it was this kind of like, what they call it now, humble brag, but it was a really nice way of going, like, this is my calling card. So I was hot for about 5 minutes. You know what I mean? It was like, it's the hot, you know, it's like 5 minutes of like, the beginning of your career, it's really easy to be like, you know, whoa, he's the new thing. But that led to some interesting people getting in touch because they'd seen it. So there was a company called, I've got to shout them out, Sin House Productions. They were a bunch of they were older than me. They were a bunch of sort of young dads that were all skaters. They all had like cropped hair and Supreme t-shirts on, and they were working on Phantom Menace merchandise. So at that point, there was a new Star Wars film coming along, and nobody knew anything about it. And I'd gone for an interview, and it was something like a German. It was like Dutch or German Walmart. It was this kind of thing. Can you do kids' pajamas for Dutch Walmart? It was like a weird sort of like, yeah, that sounds like I could do something funky. But it was like a weird thing that, like, all right. And then they had all this Star Wars stuff around, and they designed t-shirts with Darth Maul on it. And I'd never seen him, and it's this thing with a tattoo and 2 lightsabers. And I was like, oh my god, is he the new Darth Vader? Oh. And I'm freaking out like a proper Star Wars nerd about oh my god, what's a pod racer and all this stuff. And just nobody, it was all top secret. I mean, I don't think you could get away with that in the new era, but back then they just had all this stuff laying around in the office that they were working on. And I'd drawn a lot of club kids, so I was working for quite a lot of nightclub. Like, I was into this whole kind of hip hop thing, and there was a lot of interesting music in London at that point. And I was drawing all these characters that went to clubs that were my age, and getting the clothes and the sneakers right. That was really important to me, to document the time that you're in. And so there was all these kind of B-girls, and one of them I'd drawn like a little blueprint of R2-D2 on a t-shirt.
Oh, wow.
I think there was another character that had it on I think I'd done a Stormtrooper, and I can't remember what the other thing was. So we talked about the pajama job, but I'm still like, oh my god, what's this character? Who's this? Oh my god, is this in it? And I was being really distracted. And they rang Lucasfilm. They were working for Lucasfilm. They just rang Lucasfilm. We just had this guy in that he's just like, he really knows Star Wars. He's really excited, but he's really dope right now. He's like this really new, exciting artist. This is what they're saying, not me. And then when we really think we should get him to do some Star Wars t-shirts, he's all over this stuff, and it would really work. And at that point, there was this weird thing where, so I had somebody, Lucasfilm, sort of say they wanted to sort of tap into like the generation that had grown up with it, the adult, you know, the 25-year-olds that were going to clubs. It was like they wanted me to make Star Wars look cool to them, which is like a nutty thing. Star Wars doesn't need to be made to look cool, but I think at that point they weren't sure how to reach. You know,
they didn't know how to reach them. It's already Star Wars. It's already dope.
But this was a point before adults weren't buying Star Wars
Understood.
as much. Do you know what I mean? It hadn't come back yet. I don't know. There was I remember this weird thing of like, make Star Wars cool. So I just they commissioned me to do 6 t-shirts, and I just took the things that I thought were dope. So I always thought a stormtrooper was like the most iconic thing you could design. So it was like a b-boy looking storm. It was just the way he stood looked a bit b-boy,
Yeah.
you know. Like, and the one I'm always a bit embarrassed by, I did the Cantina creatures, you know, the ones that are singing through
Yeah.
like the Biff, and I did them on two turntables, one of them on two turntables, and called it Cantina Beat, which is the one I'm always a bit like, that's a bit cringy, but in 1997.
You said no. Very cool.
Yeah, and I just did things that I thought were like, you know, R2D2 is really iconic. I just sort of pitched a load of stuff, and then the relationship just went from there. I started doing merchandise, and then it became it snowballed. Like every couple of years they'd come back to something else, and it zigzagged off into a different direction. But that was the beginning of it. It was a random, you can't,
it's,
you know, it's a random thing. Really
it's like all the stars aligned, and
yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
it's you know, the beginning. There was a point, especially before the internet.
Yeah.
You'd see people at parties, and we go out drinking at street art events and stuff. And people say, "Oh, what are you working on?" I'm working on Star Wars. And they'd be like,
Look, okay.
nobody believed me. They were like, yeah, yes,
yeah, sure.
okay. It was too nuts that you worked for. They were like, yeah, dude, you're tripping.
Right.
And it's still now. It's like I can't get to. People sometimes see my stuff and they go, "Oh yeah, you should get in Lucas. You should get in touch with Lucasfilm. They might like this because it's almost like it's too crap to be real." You know, and they're looking at it like,
yeah, right.
No, but I've had people kind of go, "Oh yeah, just Lucasfilm quite like this, aren't they?" And they're like, "It's official, dude. It's like the only Star Wars stuff I've done is official." But some people kind of just think it's like, you know, the stuff you'd sell in a market that's not.
Right. No, you're the real deal.
So this one that's on screen is from the new book, which let me show you these because it's easier to explain.
All good. Let me see what you got.
So about 8 or 9 years ago, someone at Lucasfilm got in touch and said, "Do you want to do a book?" I'd just flown back from a convention and there was a confusing thing going on. I won't bore you with it, but it was like I'd lost a job, a Star Wars job, and I got screwed on something where I didn't get the money I was put, and I was a bit like, "What happened here?" You know, tell something to Lucasfilm about this company, like, you know, I kind of got screwed a bit here, and they were like, didn't think about it, and then I got offered this book, so I always think the book came because I'd sort of lost out on something else. That's my take on it. People at Lucasfilm might go. So this book is called How to Speak Wookiee. So I didn't come up with it. They said, do you want to do a book that's called How to Speak Wookiee, and it makes Wookiee noises, and it's got kind of a little machine on it that goes.
Oh my God!
Is that picking up?
That is so darling.
Yeah, and you kind of go, like, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. But the weird thing was they said we've seen all this merchandise you've done. You can draw the characters. It's like you draw rooms. We haven't ever seen you draw anybody inside anything. I was like, yeah, that's cool. So I had to do a test. I think that was the audition piece that I could actually draw them in seats and like with walls around them and things. Yeah. So then that happened. So it's an intergalactic guide to navigate around the universe when you're talking to Wookiees. And then we did a few years later. The follow-up was How to Speak Droid.
Oh my gosh!
With R2D2, which is the same format, but the buttons are slightly louder. And then the new one is, it's not as catchy a title as How to Speak Wookiee. It's How to Speak Star Wars, How to Speak Astromech with BB-8.
Oh my gosh!
So this came out during the pandemic.
Really? So it's really new.
Yeah, which is, so I was working on it before because of the lead time to send it to the factories to get the toy part made.
Yeah.
I was working on it before the last film came out, so it was this weird thing where you know, like, there's characters in it that nobody had seen yet, and they weren't allowed to show me things, but I was like, well, yeah, you can use this, but we can't tell you what it's for. And it was a really interesting process. So this came out, during lockdown. So it's the same kind of thing, except you can kind of rock it like a beatbox. It's like,
okay, there we go.
It's a bit more advanced than the other one.
I love it.
yeah, so it's again, it's the same situation, but it's got the characters from the new trilogy. It's got
Exactly.
Daisy and John, Adam Driver, characters they play. So that was fun to do the new things, but it's this weird thing of having. So Mike's a guest, isn't he? Mike Quinn.
There he is.
We've got
Oh, look at him.
Nyan. I say Nyan because I'm from Hull, but I think the proper pronunciation is Nyan. So that's the
No.
character he played
There we go.
in the new trilogy.
Wow. That's so
So
cool.
this page was really funny because the feedback from Lucasfilm originally was that I'd done Nyan quite short. He just looks
Mhm.
funny up as like a little,
Like the little
you
guy.
know. And I don't think Mike's like 6. Is Mike 6? But I don't know. I can't remember. But he sat next to Princess Leia, so I was just made him short, and they were like, "No, Nyan's like a foot taller than that." There's some very exacting feedback sometimes that you're like, "Oh, it's a cartoon."
And you have so when
Yeah,
you
yeah.
are illustrating, you send it back and they say, okay, tweak this, tweak that, and then you just make it happen.
Well, I mean, this book was more complex than the other ones. They
Right.
kind of gave me a free rein on the other stuff,
Okay.
but this is so Disney took over during this one, but I think I'd pretty much done the book, the legwork of the book, whereas this one was this was all fully under the Disney thing whilst they were making the new film. So the process was more complicated, and can't show this character and change the boots on this one. And yeah, it was a
That must
different
have
thing.
been
But
a
yeah,
serious NDA.
yeah, big NDA. So and then the other thing is like you can't. I put a book out during the pandemic, and it's just like I sort of forgot about it because the other ones I'd be on the road doing conventions and
Yeah.
literature festivals and all kinds of stuff. So there was a point one year where I was just back to back doing weekend appearances.
Mm-hmm.
None of that. So I literally sort of forget that I've done it. It's like, oh yeah, that book came out, didn't it?
You're like, oh yeah,
And
and that guy.
yeah,
Cool.
and it's not. I sold some to my what I call my faithful, my frequent flyers, my fans that are first in the queue to a convention or whatever. I gave them the first option on the books coming out. If you want to sign a copy. But actually posting books out, where you have to package it to stop it getting damaged, and
Oh Lord.
I just thought, oh, there's no point ordering loads of these in and selling them. It's too, yeah. So it's at some point I will go out into the world and the events will happen again. But
I really
it's
hope so.
yeah,
Because the technology thing, it's cool until a point,
yeah,
It's not there's nothing like being in the same room and vibing with
yeah.
the same person and actually having fun in one room.
And I think everybody probably is over doing Zoom calls and all that stuff. Everybody's like, so
Again,
yeah. So I'm itching to get back to conventions and stuff.
you are just so multi-talented.
Thank you.
It's really an honor to even be talking with you. I would love to know more about your other projects. Like, tell me a little bit about Hellraiser and your other projects that you've been working on.
So I mean, Hellraisers is
Mhm.
that's another old thing. So Hellraisers was it's a
There
graphic
you go.
novel.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the hardest thing I've ever done. It's like 200 pages of alcoholic nonsense. If you don't know these guys, it's the story of Oliver Reed, Richard Burton, Peter O'Toole, and Richard Harris, which are four of the greatest British actors ever, but also just massive drunk and raconteurs. So I always say it's not the best graphic novel you'll ever read, but it's definitely the drunkest.
The joke. Okay.
So it's a load of war stories.
Yeah.
It's them carousing, and it's not just them. It's everybody that sort of got on it
Yeah.
in the 60s, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of cameos from different actors and actresses. They're all actors. It's got Steve McQueen in it. It's got Audrey Hepburn's in it. He gets
Oh my
drunk and
God.
crashes a car. It's a Hollywood kind of Babylon style thing, and comics are hard, like quite hard work anyway. Comics where you have to make everybody look like them is like double the work. So right, Russell Crowe's in it. You can't have an arrow going, "This is Russell Crowe, a Gladiator." It just has to look like Russell Crowe, and you have to really get those faces right. So when people go, "What are you doing another graphic novel?" I'm like, oh,
you said no.
It nearly killed me.
You said no. That's one and done.
One a decade's good enough for me. No, I keep talking about signing up for another graphic novel, and it's always just like,
you like,
yeah, you're getting no social life. I should have done one in the pandemic, to be honest, because you couldn't go out. But
oh my god.
So it's a very sort of niche. It's a very niche, but I always say it's a really funny book because I didn't write it. I adapted it with a guy called Robert Sellers, and it's in their own words. It's based on their anecdotes, and they're funny. They know how to tell a story, so it's quite an entertaining ride. And I look at it and just go, "Who's that mad person that drew all this?" 200 pages. Oh.
I was gonna say 200 pages. Woo!
It's like 198 pages, something like that.
Jeez.
There was a phase where everybody was all these publishers were selling like mindfulness books. You remember all that stuff? It was like coloring books for adults, and we were like, I joked to my publisher, "Why don't we just stick some like colored pencils on the front and call it like one of these self-help meditation books, and you can color it."
That would.
And I was being really like facetious.
That would work.
I've seen somebody do that with a graphic novel that was black and white, and they've actually, and I'm like, you did do that. Yeah.
Okay. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
No, that is so awesome. I also wanted to know, you said that I know we talked a little bit earlier, just before we hop on the call, that you had a project that may have entered into the Netflix realm or in talks of Netflix. Could we?
That one.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah. So it's kind of out there because they put a press release before the pandemic. It was on. I remember it trended on Twitter for a day.
Yeah.
So there's a Jerry Anderson TV show called Terrorhawks, which was a thing when I was a kid. I was a big Thunderbirds fan when I was little. I think all little boys my age were like into it. And a mutual friend who shall go unnamed, Mark Dando. Mark's a friend of mine. He was an events organizer that we were driving back from the Space Centre in Leicester after an event there, and he knows the Jerry Anderson family really well, and he said, we should talk. And I think it was about doing T-shirts or something. I think it's like, you could do Thunderbirds in the way you do Star Wars or whatever. And I met Jamie, who's the son of Jerry Anderson, who created those shows. And we got talking about what Profit is, what we could do with Profit is. And originally it was talking about a graphic novel. I had this idea for a character that I didn't quite have a name for, and then he showed me some of the properties, and it was a combination of take this idea that I didn't quite know what it was and fit it into Terrorhawks is the show. It was like take the spaceships and some of the best elements of the original show. So it's basically, in a nutshell, it's a girl from Hackney who defends the Earth from aliens, and I think it's the best thing. That screenplay that I wrote is like the best thing I think it's the best thing I've ever written. But I sort of redesigned characters. So we took basically the old show, and there's things in it that I think Jerry Anderson probably intended. And for some reason, when you're trying to get financing for people, there's an Afro-American character in it that is a musician, and she's sort of in the background. And in my version, it's that character's name. She's the hero. She's the main. But it's basically a kid that has all the pressure of trying to defend the Earth from aliens, but she can't tell anybody about it. So I just wanted to sort of try and make something that was a really kick-ass, exciting sci-fi show for kids. It's squarely aimed at kids.
Wow.
and I was hoping that mums and dads were that, and then mums and dads get sucked in. It's exciting. So yeah, it's when you make these, any kind of animated show takes a lot of money. So we were talking to various partners. I don't get involved with so much of that end of it. So we were in talks. I think it's officially in development or incubation stage with a production company. Maybe I'll find out next week more. You know what I mean? I'm not being evasive. I haven't spoken to Jamie since for a while, so I'll ring and find out what's going on with it. So it's this thing that I made that I'm really excited about, and it's I'm hoping it gets on screen at some point.
I hope so too. It sounds like an incredible project. So
I was really excited about it. I haven't gone back to the script for a while. Maybe I'll read it this time. But at the time, I really, I'm a nerd about films and TV, and once I'd written a few books and things, I really got into, looking at everybody criticizes films, don't they? Go, this bit, and every time you've criticized a film, I was like, put those things into a script. Don't make, every time you've seen something in a film, you go, why doesn't that bit join up? Why are they explaining this stuff? When a character goes, let's go over here now. I wanted to write a script where it doesn't do that stuff. It doesn't insult the audience, and the visuals carry the story as much as, I wanted strong characters and everything to be character driven. Like, you believe these characters, and the characters push the action forward. It's not like, here's a set piece and the characters walk into it, and then we've got to, I really wanted something that was like character driven, that could, get as excited about as we did when we were little about Thunderbird. It's very in a Jerry Anderson sort of Thunderbirds thing. You've got numbered spaceships and like launch sequences, and we assembled an amazing cast of actors who were attached to the project. Some of them were mates before they were famous, but we got some really big names to say they'd do the voice. So I'm not going to jinx who said yes to it, but if we can pull it off with a cast that said yes, it's going to be really funny as well. So lots more planets and stars have to align before.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
So its official title is Kate Kestrel and the Terrible.
Wow. Oh, well, I'm excited about that. Cross fingers for you on that project. Cross fingers. I want to also bring up a very, very popular show, Doctor Who.
Okay.
Doctor Who.
Yeah, I guess they're my twin. I think for the convention bookings, they're the twin. What do you call it? They're the twin jewels, I guess. It's like Doctor Who and Star Wars. So again, like Star Wars. So this one that's on screen is John Pertwee, who was the Doctor in the late 60s.
60s, yes, he was.
Yeah, and I really, it's sort of before my time, but I think he's brilliant because he's like a proper dandy. I mean, he does. Is it Venetian Aikido, Venetian Kung Fu? He can kind of do alien Kung Fu, and he wears like velvet capes, and he's very
exactly.
He's like Peter Capaldi. I think was really informed by Pertwee's Doctor. So I was so little. I watched him change into Tom Baker, and Tom Baker's my Doctor, but I didn't know what was going on. There was a show called Vandervalk, which was a detective that had white curly hair. I was so little, I didn't know Doctor Who and Vandervalk were the same person. When you're tiny and you. So I sort of vaguely remember it. So when I was a kid, like Star Wars, Thunderbirds, all that stuff, good kid sci-fi. We were surrounded by it. So Doctor Who was a big thing when I was little. I had a toy Dalek, and we have a cereal called Weetabix in the UK. I don't know if that's in. Is that an American thing? Weetabix. I think it's UK owned. It's a breakfast cereal.
Like it was like cereal, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Something you have in the morning, and
I'm
they
more
had
of a Frosted Flakes girl.
They had Doctor Who cards.
Yeah.
Like one year, my auntie used to save. So they used to buy the big box and save these cards, and they had amazing illustrations of Tom Baker and all the aliens. Which again, it's like there was this thing of like when you're little, you're like, this is somebody's job, and I could tell the different styles. So when I started working for Doctor Who, it really felt like one of these things where it's come full circle. Like I drew this stuff when I was a kid.
Wow.
I draw the TARDIS, and I draw Tom Baker's Doctor, and draw Makeup Alien. So this one that's on screen.
Yeah.
The first ones I did for Titan were kind of quite cartoony like this, which is, I would say, is my core style. And that was really fun to do. And it was the Doctor and the assistant that was the current show. And then they let me sort of flip it and do like darker but more grown up versions as well. So I really enjoyed doing it. And the weird thing is, when you do that stuff, you hope. Star Wars, I know I've met enough Star Wars fans in America and around the world from conventions that you're getting it right for a certain amount of that community. Not everybody likes my stuff, it's like, but there's you're getting it right. You're drawing the belts the right way. When I was a kid, sometimes the artists couldn't be bothered with the details. You're hitting the spot. I'm a Star Wars fan, so I think, I wouldn't do something that a Star Wars fan was going to go. So, but with Doctor Who, it was an unknown territory. I was like, am I going to get it right for the Doctor Who fan? And
wow.
So that was kind of a bit scary. It was like I did what I thought this worked for Doctor Who, and then I was really thrilled. Like the first time I went to a Doctor Who convention, I got all this kind of love. And that was because you could have gone there and they just got we don't like it.
Right.
Not that my doctor's particularly.
Nah.
Let's see what you got. This one, I don't know if you can see this. It's in yellow Sharpie. I met Matt Smith, and I actually happen to have this on me.
That is cool.
So he signed it, and I got a signed David Tennant one from my one of my mate's kids. It was very cool about that. So it's a very weird thing meeting the doctors, and then they go, "What do you do?" And I go, "Draw your head."
I draw you. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So Matt Smith was actually really cool about it. He was really. He was like, "Have you got one that I can have?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've got one in my bag." And it wasn't weird, if you know what I mean. We were just having a coffee, and it was like sort of happened to happen. We were at a convention. It's not like I was carrying Doctor Who stuff around.
Right.
We were at a convention in a green room, and I just happened to have the bag with the Wookiee books and a few things in. Yeah, he was pretty cool about it. David Tennant was a total gent about it. And Capaldi sort of gave me a nod as we were walking past the thing. He kind of went, like, he had no idea who I was, but it felt like we vibed for a minute. I think
the vibe is real.
Yeah. And Capaldi's a really good cartoonist. There's a thing on YouTube. If you're a Doctor Who fan, you should check this out. It's on YouTube somewhere. Peter Capaldi drawing all the Doctors. Wow. And he nails it. It's amazing. And he talks about when he was growing up and what Doctor Who meant to him, and he does every one, and it looks like him. I'm like, what? I was dying to talk to him about that. I'd really like to meet him one day. Go, like, his drawings are really good. I didn't know he was not.
Amazing! Oh my gosh,
yeah.
I love this.
So I did do. There's a Jodie. I did draw Jodie for the current Doctor for Titan.
Yeah.
And then there was a regime change. Like the editor left, and he said, "Don't worry about it. It's in the system." She had to approve everything at that point. The show hadn't started, and I think her approval process wasn't like an ego thing. I think she just wanted to make sure that she's a role model for little girls, and that they weren't overly sexualizing or whatever. I think she just had her eye on so the editor left. Mm-hmm. It's in limbo. Maybe it'll come out. It's in Titan's system. I need to get in touch with somebody at Titan. There's an unplayed.
I hope so. Yes.
Yeah. In case anybody's wondering why I only drew the guys and didn't draw Jodie, she's in the system somewhere, but I don't know what happened.
I got a couple more questions to ask, and then we're gonna get right into the drawing, and I'm really excited about that. Yeah. Please don't judge my drawing because I am not the best. But
do you know what? I haven't done any drawings, and I haven't warmed up, so it'd probably be awful. So yours probably better than mine.
Oh yeah, right. I wanted to ask you about there is a show called The Mighty Boosh. If I'm thinking
well, there was a show called The Mighty Boosh. Yeah.
And I'm not really familiar just because I'm across the pond, but can you tell me a little bit about the Mighty Boosh and what that show is about and what inspired this artwork?
No.
No.
Um, you can it's trying to describe the Mighty Boosh is. Have you ever tried explaining like Star Wars? We probably haven't. I've had to explain Star Wars to somebody who's never seen it, and you just sound like a
You're
madness.
like,
And the
what?
Boosh is a bit like that. How do you describe the Boosh? Is a British sitcom
Yeah.
which does two characters, an amazing double act. Vincent Howard, who played by Noel Fielding, and Julian Barrett. And Vince is a preening, self-obsessed, sort of glam rock idiot
Mm-hmm.
who's just completely like everything that he does sort of he lands on his feet. He's like, that's amazing. It just everything comes out. He's sort of like that. And Julian's character Howard is a more anal, repressed. He's an expert on everything. He's like, I'm the expert of this. I'm a big expert about jazz actually. And he completely falls in it. They're a classic double act, but it's a really surreal, really creative show. It's got animation in it. It's got lots of weird characters. It's got a shaman in it and a gorilla.
And a gorilla.
You have to see it. It's got quite a cult following in America because it was on, saying BBC America.
Okay.
I might have got that wrong. It was on something like Adult Swim or BBC America, and I know there was a point where when I was in America, I was meeting Boosh fans, and they were all over it, and it was kind of crazy because you think, is this stuff going to translate internationally? And then Jack Black's a massive fan, so they did some festival with Jack Black because they also kind of like a band as well.
Well, he got the seal of approval. I love Jack Black, so I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. I think
I
heard from a Little Birdies on Netflix as well.
Okay, yeah.
So,
and then these characters, this was a T-shirt originally, but then we started doing print. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, you can see it better there. So the guy with the jet black hair.
Yeah.
It's this thing people go, oh my god, and I did comics for him and all, and it's like, how did you manage to work for the Boosh? And you kind of go, you've got this list of clients, or whatever. And me and Noel went to art college together, and he's really good at drawing, and we used to like draw in Colombo together when we had no money.
Amazing.
So he's an amazing painter and an artist, and we ended up moving to London together. We were quite ambitious. We shared a flat for about 5 years. I met Julian, who was like a musician, a comedian. So we all sort of hung out, and it was very much like they needed graphics doing before they were famous, and they liked what I was doing. So I did a lot of work for the Boosh at the beginning, and it's a costume design from when they were on stage. And it's just you mates, you collaborate, and then they turned into massive superstars in the UK. They were like touring the giant arenas. It got about as big as a TV show could get at one. So they kind of took me with them. Again, it's looking at, I really believed in what they were doing, and sort of backed the right horse. So yeah, I don't know what you can, probably on YouTube, innit, by now. I don't know how somebody will be showing it. If you want to see something genuinely original, very, very British, and it's in the same lineage as like Monty Python.
Yeah.
Yes, Eddie Izzard, Spike Milligan, a very surreal British Beatles.
So cool.
They sort of wanted to make a show like the Monkees. They were massively inspired at the beginning. They loved the Monkees, the American show, and they wanted something like a UK version of the Monkees. That was a sentence that kicked around at the incubation period, which they probably were thankful for. Yeah, so if you like the idea of like the Monkees and those kind of like surreal,
I'm down for it. Yeah. What else I'm down for is I'm ready to draw.
You're ready to go?
I'm ready to draw. I think I can.
All right, let's do this.
I can do it now. So
yeah. Don't worry about it, because if it's really rubbish, we'll put it out in the edit, and I'll just do another one for you, and you can send it to us.
Exactly.
I'm sure you.
That's the magic of the internet.
Yeah, we cheat. We didn't say that on camera, do we? No.
All right. Well, I'm really excited to get on into it. Let's get to drawing.
Okay, and I guess if you're watching this at home, Yeah, you don't need anything special. Just pick up a pen and try it. Right. Have you got you've got a pen and paper ready to go?
Oh yeah.
It doesn't really matter what you draw with. I have a selection of professional artist pens, but I'm actually using I don't know if you can see this, a flip chart marker, because this should look better on camera than if I do it with a pencil or a biro, and it will look really weedy. So, but you can use anything you want. So I think we'll draw something fairly simple to start with. This is the thing I often do with kids because it gives them the confidence to draw more complicated things. So, but if you can draw already, well, you should be able to ace this. So can you draw circles?
I can draw circles.
Okay, so what we need to do is draw a circle first, and it doesn't matter if that circle is a little bit wonky. If it's a little bit wonky, it actually makes the whole thing cooler. So you've got that?
I got a circle.
Okay, then we need to draw another circle, but inside that circle. And then another circle inside that circle. And there I've taught you how to draw a tennis ball.
Yes. Okay, step one done.
Step one, tennis ball level unlocked.
Oh yeah.
Basically, if you've been able to draw the circle, then I want you to think of, like, imagine half in that circle and put in half that circle on like that. This is the point in when I'm doing this in front of kids in the audience, one of them shouts out and tells you what it is already. Can you guess? It's you know, I often talk about this is a Star Wars thing. I often talk about, like, the good designs in Star Wars are so iconic you can't draw them into shapes. So, you know, this one is pretty much all circles. So we draw a circle like that. We put another circle inside it. We put a circle there. I'm basically only drawing circles. You have to pay me a lot more to draw, like, oblongs and rectangles.
Oh man, I don't think we have it in the budget.
So have you ever heard of an oblong?
An oblong?
Yeah. Like when we were kids, you know, like a rectangle.
Oh yeah.
Like when we were kids, they called them. There was still, like, you know, like VHS and Betamax. It was like oblong was like a word for a rectangle, and then it seems to have been retired. And I'm like, nah, oblong was good. It's a beautiful word, oblong. I just like saying it.
It is a beautiful word.
But when I draw oblongs, I'm a lot more expensive. So you're only getting circles.
Oh man.
So I've drawn a little ridge underneath that mushroom shape, and you can sort of fill that in with black because it's technically shadow. And you should be able to tell what we're drawing now. And don't know, it's BB-8, which is the droid, the new Star Wars films. And he's just a set of circles. A guy called J. Clunt Davis was one of the main designers. It was like a team of designers, but J. Clunt Davis, who's a lovely fella, came up with, like, the BB-8 design. And it's almost like a baby version of R2-D2 if you think about it.
It is a little baby version.
And then he's got a little crown on his head, just like sort of a little circular part like that, and you just draw little lines. The great thing about this character is I doubt even J. Clunt Davis can remember what goes inside these bits. There's a lot of random shapes in here, and it doesn't really matter. I'm pretty sure I got one of them wrong in the book, and nobody picked up on it. So they've got all these little question mark shapes and little grommet parts. You know, if you just draw, like, island in it or something, it'll work, and no one's going to stop you. And then he's got two little antennae that stick out the top of his head. So depending on how you draw these, this can sort of affect the speed like the speed of the character in the drawing, not the speed of the drawing, but to try and make a character look like he's going fast. If I go like this and draw him quite fast, you assume that he's either in the wind or he's moving a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? If you don't
It
stick up,
does.
it looks like it's almost like exclamation marks. You can make him look like he's surprised by sticking them up in the
Like
air.
he has someplace to go.
Yeah, and then another trick to make things go like they're going fast. So what I do often is I light my drawings from the top. So if you imagine there's the twin suns of tattooing, all the light is shining down that way. So that means any shadow falls.
Oh, nice.
You can make a drawing look a little bit more 3D, even if it's like a simple cartoon. It gives it a bit of
Give it a little bit more depth.
It's amazing when a client goes, "Oh, you're a bit too carny." You just put more black on things, and they suddenly go, "Oh yeah, it's grown up." So it can make things look moodier, but actually, is defining the shape. Can you see when he looks like he's in sunlight now? And then to make him look like he's moving fast, the light travels there, so that means the shadow should be sort of underneath him. But if you draw a rough, the rougher you draw it, weirdly, it makes it look like he's going faster. And then all we need is a couple of little rotation marks. And then this is the tip. This is like the bit that really makes it look like he's steaming along at speed. Is you just sort of relax and draw the most sort of dust cloudy shape you can think of, and it's sort of.
Ooh, okay, I can do squiggly lines.
And I always say I nick this from Roadrunner. It's like you see Roadrunner coming from the distance.
Yeah.
And he's picking up that massive cloud of dust. And it's like you see a car going through the desert. You kick a football through, on a dusty pitch, you get that. And that's what it is a football being kicked along a desert. So you would have this little cloud of dust. And that hopefully translates to the view that he's moving at a certain speed. A lot of people put like whiz lines and things on things.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, you don't need that. You can put it in the drawing. The faster, once you've drawn this, then if you draw it really fast, the faster you draw it, let me just give you a little demo.
Yeah, let me see.
You draw it like super fast. That drawing's not as good, but then you can quickly sort of tidy that drawing up and make it a bit more, But it's almost like the faster you draw something, the more you believe it's going at speed. That's not as good a drawing, but it's got more energy. You see what I mean?
Yep.
So often it's learning to draw something, and then my technique is learning the shape until it's like a muscle memory, and then spitting it out fast if you want to try and make it look like it's got some energy to it.
That's so cool.
Often, the smaller you draw it, sometimes I'll draw things only about that big with a pencil, and then when you blow them up, they've got a lot of movement to them as well, which is a good little trick if you're trying stuff like that. So basically, the rest of BB-8, he's got the same kind of parts that like R2D2's got. He's got these like panels, and there you've kind of got the BB-8. Well, that's cool. That's very cool. So you're gonna come and work. You're gonna come and work for me at Detonator in the studio then when we reopen properly.
Yeah, if you're gonna teach me a couple more classes, I will definitely come.
Yeah, I like your energy. You're into hip hop, so we can listen to the beats whilst we're working. It'll be good.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I would love it. I would love to. Thank you so much, Jake. That's a wrap on us. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Once again, I'm A. Noel. If you want to follow me and on my journey to learning how to draw better, you can follow me on IG at Fearless Actress and on Twitter, TF Actress. I hope you have a wonderful time at BritCon virtually. Stay safe and see you next time.